Tell me your first name.
Destiny.
How old are you, Destiny?
I'm 14.
And you don't have a driver's license.
No, ma'am.
So you know you're not allowed to drive a car?
Yes, I do.
You took your mother's car without permission.
I did.
You were with a girlfriend.
Yes, ma'am.
Who also is your age? Mm-hmm. Uh-huh is not an answer.
Yes, ma'am.
And you stole your mother's car on what date?
October 7th or 8th.
Where was your mother?
Sleeping.
What time did you steal your mother's car?
Around 4, 3, around that time.
What?
Like, I say about 3:30. I'm sorry.
The morning, afternoon, or evening?
In the morning, a.m.
3:30 in the morning.
Yes, ma'am.
And you had an accident.
Yes, ma'am.
You had an accident with this lady's car.
Yes, ma'am.
And instead of stopping, you took off, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And it was a bad accident.
Yes, ma'am.
And was the damage to the side of your car? Was the damage to the side of your car?
No, ma'am.
Passenger side?
No, ma'am.
Don't play. Passenger side? No. Driver side? No. Where was the damage to your car?
The front.
Front. Okay. So now that I've got the clear picture, you stole your mother's car, you have no driver's license, whatever insurance your mother had on the car would certainly not cover this accident because you're an unauthorized driver, you have no driver's license. Your mother certainly wasn't going to report you to the police for stealing her car. I don't think you did that, right? And the damage to your car was in the front. Front. You're going to tell me, but just so that I know. The damage to your car was on the side.
Yes, ma'am.
Of course. You see, cars don't slide together. Do you know what I mean? One car hits another. Mm-hmm. Do you understand?
Yes.
Is not an answer.
Yes, ma'am.
Better. Okay, so now we're going to go to October 8th.
Yes,
okay?
Your Honor.
You were on your way to work?
Yes, ma'am.
And Miss Atkins, tell me what happened.
I was going to work. It was 5:30 in the morning. I was going up Franklin Road. I got to Brookville Road.
You were driving straight?
Yes, I'm going up Franklin Road. Mm-hmm. I get to a light at Brookville Road. I make a stop because the light is red. I'm sitting at the red light. The light changes green. I proceed to go through the light at the green light. The defendant is coming the opposite way from me. She's not in the turning lane. She's in the regular straight lane. So I see her coming at a rapid speed. But I'm thinking she's going straight, so I proceed to go through the light. By the time I get mid-light, I don't know what happened, but she decides to turn. And when she turns right into me, and hits me.
Okay. And then what happened?
And then I hear her and her friends are hollering. Her friend is hollering, "Run, Destiny, we have to go. Run, Destiny, we have to go." I'm still trying to get myself together, and I'm looking, and all I could do was grab my phone and dial 911 to call the police.
And by that time, they were gone?
And by that time, they were gone.
Miss Atkins, how did you find her?
We called to the insurance company.
No, wait a second.
Okay.
How did you find her? They took off.
Oh, they took off.
They took off.
Her car was still at the accident.
Oh, so they ran and left the car?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh.
So my husband came. I had called my husband as well. He came to the accident scene. He took pictures of the cars and the plates, and we contacted our insurance. Our insurance gave us the name, and I went on Facebook, and I looked her up, and I seen Destiny, who I had seen run from the accident. And we found out she was hiring for a job. So inboxed her, found out where she worked, and we went to her job.
You mean her mother?
Her mother.
Her mother.
My daughter inboxed you and asked you what...
Don't speak to her.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Don't speak to her.
Okay.
What?
Listen to me. Whatever you say is no good. Just understand that. Your daughter stole your car. She's 14 years old. She could have killed people. She could have killed people. There's no excuse for that. There's no excuse for her stealing your car. Has she ever done it before?
No.
But she did.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And she did, and she had an accident because she didn't have a driver's license. She lacked state permission to be behind the wheel of a car. Let's go. Did you know your daughter had state permission to be behind the wheel of a car?
But she still harassed me, though.
What?
At my job. She harassed me at my job.
Just a second. Did she contact you first?
As far as
Just as anything, contact,
No.
email. So
I don't know
you're
who
gonna
her
tell
daughter
me-
was.
You're going to, what?
I didn't know who her daughter was trying to contact me on Facebook.
I don't. Did you know your daughter had been in an accident? Let's go. Did you know your daughter had been in an accident? Of course you did, because she left the car there, right?
Yes.
So you knew she had been in an accident?
Yes.
Right? Did you contact the police?
No.
Why not?
She came to the house freaking out and, in panic of her getting in an accident. And my daughter
So
is
what did you,
telling
just a
me,
second, so what did you do? What did you do? Your daughter stole your car. I see the picture of the accident. The picture of the accident clearly shows that your daughter hit her car. Your daughter's car is the gray
this is
one.
the very first time
Just a
I've
second.
seen this.
Well, I'm telling you, when you have front end damage, that means you hit somebody. She's wrong from the get-go. So I'm asking you, she came home, you told somebody, did you call the police and say, listen, my 14-year-old daughter took my car without permission, there was a bad accident, I hope nobody was hurt. Did you do that?
No, I did not.
No, of course not. You waited for somebody to find you.
No, not necessarily.
Well, what do you mean not necessarily? Unless you contacted somebody, did you go back to the...
I was under the impression that they called the police.
Just a second, what would give you that impression? Your daughter ran away.
She said that cops were called.
How did she know the cops were called? She ran away. What?
The cops were there. A cop had spoke to me that night. I was
After the accident.
before. After the accident. But
Well, the accident happened 3:30 in the morning. The officer spoke to you at night. That's after the accident.
Yes, ma'am. But there's a fire department right by where we got into an accident at, and there was a police car parked while I was fleeing the scene. And he had asked me what I was doing, and I told him that I was fine and that there had just been a car accident. And he went.
And the policeman told you to leave.
No.
He stopped and spoke to a policeman that there had been this kind of car accident, that you were driving with that,
I never
and the
said that I
policeman
was
told you to
driving,
leave? Okay. Did you notify your insurance company?
Unfortunately,
That's either a yes or a no.
no, because I don't have insurance. It lapsed.
Double whammy. So your daughter follows in her mother's foot. This is the example that you're setting. She's driving your car without a license, and you have a car that has no insurance. That's a great lesson. And so what happens is a perfect storm. Your car without insurance, driven by your unlicensed minor child, causes a stupendous accident where someone could have been killed. You don't call the police. Did you go and look at the scene of the accident? It's either a yes or a no.
Not the scene. No.
The scene. I'm talking about the scene of the accident. Your daughter came home. Did she tell you right away what happened? Shh. What time did your daughter get home?
About 7 or 8 in the morning.
Well, where did she go after the accident? Did you ask her?
She was waiting for a ride. She had woke me up in my sleep and told me about the accident.
So the accident that happened 3:30 in the morning, according to her, or 5:30. So she was driving around for a couple of hours before the accident happened 5:30. An hour and a half later, she woke you up?
Yes.
Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, ma'am.
And did she tell you where the accident happened?
Yes.
And what did you do? 7:30 in the morning? She had a terrible accident. She told you where it happened. Did she tell you that she ran away from the accident?
Yes.
What did you do?
Well, she does have severe asthma.
Just to say, I don't care whether she has severe asthma or not. It's irrelevant to me. I'm asking you what you did.
Right.
What you did. Your daughter calls you, not from the house.
She comes in the house.
Oh, I thought you said she called you. Not important. She came into the house at 7:30. She told you that you stole the car, went for a joyride with her friend, whatever language she used, and she had a very bad accident. The car was demolished, right?
Yes, ma'am.
What did you do? 7:30 in the morning. I want to know what you did. 7:30, 8 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock. What did you do?
She wakes me up. I'm freaking out. She's freaking out.
I don't
her
care
asthma.
freaking. I don't care freaking out. It's
did you
not
do?
relevant. Don't speak to your mother. I'm asking your mother a question. What did you do?
As soon as she told me that, I was freaking out about it, and I went into mommy mode because she was outside in hours, cold, waiting for a ride. So, and she was having asthma problems. She was in a panic. So I immediately, I was trying to figure out what's going on, but I also wanted to make sure that my daughter was okay.
Oh, that takes a half hour.
So I
That
went
takes a half
to
hour.
her
What did you
room,
do at 8 o'clock?
and I gave her a breathing treatment.
What's that? After you gave her the breathing treatment, that's 8 o'clock. Now it's 8:15.
As we're giving her a treatment, we're looking through the phone, internet and looking to see what tow companies, what place would have our car. And we finally figure out where our car was, and I got a ride to go look at my car.
What time?
I would say maybe about 9, 10 o'clock.
Okay. When was the call to the police? Now you took care of your daughter, you gave her a breathing treatment. You looked through the internet. When did you call the police? Your daughter was involved in a hit and run.
I was under assumption that the police were called,
Who told you that?
that the police was at the scene.
Just a second. Who told you that? She ran away.
Well, I do know that the car got sent to a police, impound, towing company.
You didn't know that until you looked it up.
Right.
I'm asking you when you called the police.
So
The answer is you did not.
No, I did not.
Okay. Now, so I don't have to go look any further. No insurance, no driver's license, fled the scene, her fault. How dare you have a car on the road without insurance? The car is totaled. It looks like it's a total car to me.
Yes, ma'am.
How much was left on the note for the car?
$35,000.
Was left on the note?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll take a look at those papers in a second. And what was the check from insurance?
They paid $30,000.
Can I see, please?
I don't have my glasses, and they're in my purse. I'm sorry.
Maybe your husband can help you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So am I correct that they paid you $35,749? Is that what they paid you?
That's what they paid the dealership. Yes, ma'am.
$35,749. And the amount financed was $39,800?
That is correct.
And you hadn't made any payments?
Yes, ma'am. We've made payments.
This is $39,826, but you made payments, so that would reduce the amount of the loan.
This is the original copy of when we purchased the vehicle. And then I have a list of the payments that we made right here.
What I want to know is you're suing for the difference between what was paid
Yes, ma'am.
to the loan company and what you still owed that you had to make good on, correct?
Correct.
How much money did you have to make good on to the loan company? It's not $5,000.
No.
How much money did you have to pay the loan company to clear the debt?
What we had was called a gap insurance.
So you had gap.
Yes, ma'am.
So all you had was a deductible. So all you had to pay was if you had gap.
Which was a $500 deductible.
Just a second.
Sorry.
That's all. That's what I want to know. You had gap insurance, so the gap covered whatever the
gap
difference.
didn't cover the complete loss of the vehicle because they said we didn't have uninsured motorists, so we had to come out of pocket.
So now I want you to show me
Yes, ma'am.
what your out of pocket was. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not understanding this. You want to tell me what the out of pocket is? Gap paid. How much?
The rest besides 17. What we owe.
$1,756.
Yes, ma'am. That's what we owe out of pocket.
Okay, not $5,000.
No, ma'am.
$1,756.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, that certainly has to make you whole. I knew it wasn't $5,000 because
Yes.
it says you had gap insurance.
Yes, ma'am.
Great. $1,756. Now, you were taken from that accident scene to the hospital?
Yes, ma'am.
Which hospital?
To Community East.
Were you taken by ambulance?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you stay in the hospital?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Did you have any uncovered medical bills?
No, ma'am.
Were they all covered?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So your out-of-pocket expenses $1,756.
Yes, ma'am.
And the discomfort that brought you to the hospital.
Yes, ma'am. And I have a lost wage paper from my employer as well.
I'd like to see it.
Also, if I may say, ma'am, we had to rent a car, obviously, because her car was totaled, and the bill is in there as well.
Well, your out-of-pocket expenses, including your lost wages because you didn't work a full shift, you are an hourly employee. Those expenses, your car expenses, the $1,756 all amount to about $3,000. You're suing the defendant for $8,000, right?
ma'am.
I'm awarding you the $8,000. How dare you have a car on the road without insurance, and how dare you place other people at risk by getting behind the wheel of a car when you're 14 years old and have no business doing that? Do you own or rent your own home?
We rent.
You rent. Do you work?
At the moment, no.
Were you working then?
Yes.
Okay. What happened to your job? That's what you're going to tell me. You're going to tell me she came and she harassed you at your job. Tell me how.
They both did. Well,
No, not both. Her.
the
Plaintiff.
well, her husband is the one that did the talking.
And he said,
And he told me, I have never seen the accident until now, so I have no idea. I believe my daughter.
well, you shouldn't.
her.
Why would you believe a thief
No,
and a liar?
believe what happened.
But why would you believe a thief and a liar? She may be a thief and a liar, but she's not stupid. If the plaintiff hit her, she would have stayed at the scene because she got hit. Doesn't that make sense to you? That if she was the one who was in the right and got hit by the plaintiff, she would have remained. She said she saw a police car there and she spoke to a policeman. So if she was in the right in the accident, what'd she leave for? Okay, you don't know. Judgment for the plaintiff, $8,000. We're done.
This court is adjourned.
It was very frightening. I've never been in an accident before, and so that time of morning, I'm on my way to work, so I'm not expecting that, of course.
I mean, my daughter took my car.
I'm glad that justice was served.
When I tried to come out to make the turn, I seen her and we crashed.
I really don't think she gets the concept of what she done,
I don't have a car.
and her mother doesn't either, obviously.
Single mom without a car.
I think she was trying to get out of paying the money,
I mean, I immediately went into, mommy mode because of her asthma issues.
and I think she also was only concerned about her daughter, which is another big issue to me too.
But I was frantic. I didn't know what to do.
You didn't never once mention, well, I wanted to check and see if the plaintiff was okay.
I mean, my daughter could have been way worse. I'm just happy she's still here with me.
Make sure you watch your kids. I've been a single parent as well. I raised 3 kids and I've not had to deal with this situation. Don't lay your keys around.
I will never understand parents like the defendant who cover for their children who have done outrageous things. If I came home and told my father and my mother that I stole their car, was 14, driving a car, and fled the scene of any type of accident, I would need a breathing treatment after they were done with me. That is how it should be, because that is how you raise responsible, accountable children, to raise them into adults.
I couldn't agree. You have a daycare center.
Correct.
You found that the baby was bitten by her little one.
Yes, ma'am.
I think are supposed to be separated, correct?
She left out of the room is what she told me, Judge. There's only one.
Dallas Lee for child care services, late fees, and property damage.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge. Case 2175, Grimm versus Lee.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Miss Grimm, in what state do you live?
Missouri,
In what county?
Jackson,
You have a daycare center.
an in-home childcare, yes.
For how long?
I started September of 2022.
What is your house like?
I have a single-family home with a finished basement and then like an attic type. It's 2 bedrooms.
House has 2 bedrooms?
No, up in the attic has 2 bedrooms. It's technically a 3-bedroom house, but it has made 6 rooms.
And how many children do you have?
I currently have 7.
How old are they?
14, 13, 11, 8, 5, and 3, and 1, 18 months.
3 and 18 months.
I'm sorry, she's 4 now. She just turned 4.
So the older ones go to school. Does the 5-year-old go to school?
Yes,
And the 8-year-old goes to school.
correct.
So you have 2 little ones at home.
My 4-year-old goes to early childhood, half a day.
So you have 1 child at home during the day
Correct.
and 1 half a day.
Yes.
And you have 3 children.
Yes, ma'am.
How old are they?
I now have a 3-year-old, a 1-year-old, and a 5-month-old.
And those were the children that you enrolled in her daycare center.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Grimm, What kind of licensing do you have, an application that you have to make in order to run an in-home daycare center in Missouri?
So in the state of Missouri, as long as you have under 6 children, you do not have to have a license.
As long as you have 6 children in total in the house, or 6 children
That I'm watching.
that you're watching?
Correct. Because my school children are not considered watching, like under the law.
Well, you certainly have to watch your 18-month-old.
Yes, he's the only one. That's why I've always kept 5 children or less.
It is your claim that Miss Lee entered her children into your program. She paid you for a certain period of time. She owes you for 2 weeks.
Correct.
And were those 2 weeks that her children were actually in care?
Correct.
Which 2 weeks were those?
They are the last 2 weeks of October.
Of 2022?
Correct.
And the children were in your program?
Correct.
Miss Lee, were the children in Miss Grimm's program the last 2 weeks in October?
Yes, ma'am, they were.
Did you pay her for the last 2 weeks in October?
No, ma'am, I did not.
How much were you supposed to pay her?
For the last 2 weeks was supposed to be $600 because our agreement was $600 every 2 weeks.
Okay, so it was supposed to be $600.
Yes, ma'am.
So now the ball is in your court so far. Ms. Grimm, we're not talking about a late fee. We're just talking about these 2 weeks.
Correct.
First, tell me your reason for removing the children.
I removed my children out of her care because my children, every time that I picked them up, it was either they were harmed or injured, or my son, my 3-year-old, would tell me something had happened while I was gone at work in her care. My son had told me on numerous accounts that she hit him herself, and then he also told me that her 15-year-old son, or 14, I'm sorry, had also spanked him. And when I did ask him, well, I asked her actually, I said, who is Trey? Because he said, Mommy, Trey hit me. We were getting in the car. They normally do help me get in the car with my 3 children, seeing I have one who's barely walking.
You get going all over the place.
Yes, ma'am. So they normally help me get in the car with my children, so they were outside with us. And my son said, Mommy, Trey hit me like this. I didn't know any Trey, so I asked her, who is Trey? And she said, that's my son. And he said, that's me. He was standing right there next to her. He said, I'm Trey. And I said, Bryson said that you hit him. And he said, yes, I hit Bryson. He said, I popped him because Bryson wasn't doing right. Bryson didn't want to go to timeout.
On what day was that?
That was on October 25th.
And what was the last day that your children attended?
October 27th.
Okay, so despite the fact that Trey, your Trey?
Yes, ma'am.
Slapped the 3-year-old, said that he slapped the 3-year-old, you let him stay there for an extra 2 days.
Yes, ma'am.
Just that's it, yes. Now, where were you working that you had your children in daycare?
I was working as a CNA.
What is that?
A certified nurse's assistant.
Where?
It's a
Nursing
like a
home?
rehab. Yes, ma'am.
When did you start working there?
I started working there in September.
September of 2022?
Yes, ma'am.
Beginning of September?
Yes, ma'am.
And when did you stop working there?
I stopped working there October 27th. That was my last day.
If I were to call, would they tell me that they terminated you or you quit?
I quit.
Did you quit on the 27th?
Yes, ma'am.
And what about now? Are you working?
I am.
Who are you working for?
I work through a temp agency, working per diem at different locations as a CNA.
And who takes care of your children?
My stepmom. My children,
Just a second. And when did you start that job?
I started that job about 4 weeks ago.
So in December.
Acknowledges.
So your stepmom takes care of one of the children.
My 5-month-old daughter, yes, ma'am.
Who's in the house. Now you're going to tell me why you didn't pay her for the last 2 weeks.
So my children began in her care September 12th. September 13th, she sent me a text message while I was at work, and she said, I want to let you know, Lil Mama was bit today by my 1-year-old on her cheek. She sent me a picture. I have this.
Not interested. Okay. I mean, it's not that I'm disinterested. It's that don't show me anything from September, madam. You kept your children with her into October and through the end of October. And if anything was so concerning to you that you thought your children would be at risk, I'm certain that you would have discussed it with your father, and your father would have said to you, don't speak. Okay. And your father would have said to you, if you have a problem with the children, don't let them stay there. What you did, okay, I can see that you're dying to tell me something. What?
Yes, ma'am. My daughter had no other choice but to keep her children in care because I work a full-time job.
Let me explain something to you, sir. Your daughter was living with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. There is always an alternative, sir. I have young grandchildren, and I would say if I was legitimately concerned for their health and safety, I don't care what it is, Stay home and take care of your children. You'll have a roof over your head until you find appropriate daycare. And if you didn't do that, then you're not much of a grandfather.
Well,
you can't use something that happened in September or early October to say, well, that's why I didn't pay the last 2 weeks. So you can't make excuses, sir. I'm telling you, I'm a grandmother and I've had little children. I don't care what you had to do. Quit my job, whatever that job is, and say, we'll all stay home and take care of the children until you find, or you stay home and take care of the children. I'll provide you with whatever basics you need until you get the right daycare. And if you didn't do that, don't tell me that your daughter didn't have a choice. There is always a choice when your babies are concerned.
In our estimation at that time, we were giving her some hard life lessons because she does now have 3 children, and there are going to be some difficulties in this living situation. There are going to be some things. So what we were doing, we're giving her some tough love and saying, hey, you cannot give up just because the chips are down or because things happen. You have to try to figure things out.
Well, that would be on you. That's not on her. This is not her daughter. It's your daughter.
Absolutely.
And your grandchildren, sir.
Absolutely.
And if you want to teach her some real hard lessons and say you got to stay with the daycare, even though you're dissatisfied.
We said give her a chance because it was the first day.
So.
It was the first incident, first day. We said give her a chance. Things happen sometimes.
What I don't want to hear is from you, who seem like a very intelligent man, a working man, is my daughter had no choice. Your daughter has a choice. Her choice is to say to you, Dad, please, I have to find the right daycare. I have to stop working at this job. I may need a month. You may not have liked her previous irresponsible behavior, right?
Correct.
But the deed is done. She got 3 young children.
Beautiful children.
Right? So what you do is when you have 3 young, beautiful children, you protect them.
Absolutely.
And if you're not smart enough to protect them yourself, you got to rely on your father who's smart enough to do that. What I'm saying to you is your daughter used this lady's services and she has to pay for it. She may not send her children back, but your statement that you were so anxious to make to me, which is my daughter had no choice, she did have a choice, sir. She did have a choice. Before I would let my children stay in a place where I actually believed that they were being abused, because that's what she's suggesting. I mean, she's not suggesting that this young man, who I'm not condoning hitting a 3-year-old, gave him a slap on the rear end. I'm not condoning that. But there were no injuries to him. I don't know whether you've done it. I don't know whether she's done it to her child. You certainly don't want a daycare provider's child to discipline a 3-year-old.
Absolutely.
That's not what it's about.
But after the first incident, what we were trying to teach her is that you don't just throw in the towel, because Ms. Graham was just starting her service up. And
September 5th.
So we understand that there are going to be some hiccups and some things that she has to fix as she comes across them. And so she's a young lady. My daughter's a young lady. So as an older man, I'm trying to support 2 individuals to build their lives up. And so I told my daughter, I don't like that she was bitten, but at least she came forward very quickly and told you, so leave them there for now. And if anything else transpires, then we can start to look at things then. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Who do you work for, sir?
I work for the Veterans Administration.
And how long have you worked for the Veterans Administration?
21 years.
Do you get paid every 2 weeks?
Yes, ma'am.
Let's say your boss at the VA all of a sudden decided they didn't like the work you were doing. And you left and they owed you 2 weeks' pay because you had actually worked for the 2 weeks.
Absolutely.
And you sued them for those 2 weeks. You worked there. You said, well, we didn't like the quality of his work for those 2 weeks. Well, then you fire him, but you pay him. It's like going to a restaurant. My favorite analogy is you go into your favorite restaurant where you get a steak. And you order a steak, medium, Pittsburgh medium. Steak comes, you cut into it, you take a bite. Oh my God, you say, I don't like the way this tastes. You take the plate, you spit out the bite if you're smart, call the waiter over and say, this is a bad steak, right?
Absolutely.
And the waiter takes it off the bill or you order something else. Now you cut into that same steak, you taste, you say, this tastes terrible. Maybe the next bite will taste better. Before you know it, you've finished the whole steak. Waiter comes over to take your clean plate, you say, this steak was awful. I didn't like it. It was bad. Well, what'd you eat it for? But if you ate the steak, you gotta pay for it. If you take a bite and say it's no good, I'm in your corner, send it back. But your daughter ate the steak. She used her services for 2 weeks and didn't pay her.
Well, we can't say that she used her services because there are other pieces of evidence that we have.
Well, you mean you're talking about that sometimes she left the children with her husband?
Yes.
Yeah, baloney. Your daughter had the benefit of daycare so that she could work. If you're not satisfied with the service, you stop using the service. If you continue to use the service despite the fact that you're not satisfied with it, you gotta pay for it.
For children.
Your daughter had the benefit of daycare so that she could work.
Absolutely.
And she had the benefit of daycare from this lady that enabled your daughter to make money.
But if we're talking breach of contract, the contract was breached when the husband watched the child. And
Now you're not teaching your daughter responsibility. Now you're making excuses. Now you're not teaching your daughter responsibility. Your daughter worked to make money. You worked those last 2 weeks, didn't stay home with your grandchildren. You made money.
Absolutely.
The only one that didn't make money and had her 3 children for those 2 weeks was the plaintiff. She ate the steak. She used the service. She didn't have anybody else. It's not as if, well, I had to hire somebody else to take care of the kids the last 2 weeks, even though it was in my deal. So that's why I'm not paying them. She worked, you worked, she worked. And if her husband, if she ran out to the store and left her husband, unless you're telling me that that was such a breach of the agreement that your daughter took the children out of her program. Did she? No, she did not. She didn't say, I'm not allowing your husband to take care of my children, even if it's just for an hour. I'm taking my children out of the program. Dad, can you help me out for the next couple of weeks until I find something else? But you can't eat the steak, which she did. Now you can sit down.
Can I say one more thing?
Not if you want to continue to look foolish. Now you're not teaching her responsibility.
Well,
now you're not teaching her responsibility. I don't want to have to teach you responsibility.
Well, you don't have to. I'm a veteran. I know what responsibility is. But when you are promoting your program as one thing, but your service is another, I cannot say that if Bobby Flay is cooking the steak.
It doesn't matter who was cooking the steak. It was whether you ate the steak. It's whether you ate the steak.
I get what you're saying, Judge. But if it's promoted as Bobby Flay cooking it and Bob Berger cooked it, and I don't like the taste, then those are two different things.
Oh, no, sir. If you're promoting Bobby Flay as cooking the steak and you find, or the hamburger, and you find out that Bobby Flay's younger brother was cooking the steak or was cooking the burger, and either way, if the burger is no good, you're not going to eat it. But you can't eat it and say, well, I really thought I was getting a Bobby Flay hamburger, and I didn't get a Bobby Flay hamburger, so I'm not going to pay for it, even though I ate it. Now you can sit down. How much is 2 weeks' worth of care? $600?
Yes, ma'am.
Judgment for the plaintiff, $600. You have a counterclaim. Counterclaim is ridiculous. Money owed for lost wages, emotional distress on behalf of the children. You shouldn't have emotional distress on behalf of the children, madam. You're their mother. The first time you had an inkling that you felt that your children, your young children, were being neglected in the plaintiff's care, what you should have done was remove them. Remove them. First time you felt as if 3-year-old shouldn't have been subject of a slap by this young man? Great. Remove them. You found that the baby, the little one, was bitten by her little one. You say, that's not watching them carefully enough, because they, I think, are supposed to be separated, correct?
Yes.
No, we were all in one room, so they weren't having to be separated, because with me only having less than 4 children, there was no way of separating because there was only one me.
It's a big responsibility to take care of little children.
Correct.
My daughter shouldn't have been in his reach. She did tell me that she left out of the room.
I absolutely agree with you.
She left out of the room is what she told me, Judge. So that's actually not true. She told me that she left out of the room and went to the kitchen.
What day? Give me the date that happened.
September 13th.
You left the children there until the end of October. It couldn't have been so disturbing for you, madam, to leave the children there until the end of October, another 6 weeks, if you felt as if they weren't getting adequate care. And if you did, that would be on you. And maybe a little bit on your father. Because if you told him about it, said, oh my God, that's terrible. Take my child out right away. All 3 of them. But you didn't. You left them in there September 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, all the way up until the end of September and the end of October. That's on you.
Actually, she did not have them in the end of September because she was suspended from her job. So they were gone for 2 weeks in September.
Were you suspended from your job?
I was. I had to...
That's my question. You were suspended from your job. When you were suspended from your job, did you take the children out of daycare?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and that's reasonable. She didn't give you a problem with that, I assume.
No.
And you didn't pay for those 2 weeks?
I did not.
Great. Well, these 2 weeks you're going to pay for. Because
I don't believe I owe her anything.
I don't care what you believe. If you're not listening to what I'm saying to you and you're fixed in your opinion, that means you haven't learned anything. Your father tried to teach you a little bit of tough love. What I'm telling you is, if you work, you get paid. If you're not satisfied with the service, you stop using the service. If you continue to use the service despite the fact that you're not satisfied with it, you gotta pay for it. That's America. You got paid, your father got paid, she gets paid. She didn't get paid for the 2 weeks you took your kids out. Didn't say to you, well, you have to pay me anyway. I have to keep this open for you. That was very fair. Took the kids out, didn't pay. You left your kids in, you pay $600. You count the claims dismissed. We're finished.
This court is adjourned.
I am a little upset she didn't see things my way.
The judge was kind of in my favor for majority of it.
You know, her leaving my children in the care of her 15-year-old son and also her husband.
Then why did she continue bringing her children to me for another month?
Also, my son letting me know that, you know, she hit him.
I have never touched her children. I could take a lie detector test to prove it.
It was pretty difficult for me because I didn't have any other choices. I didn't have anyone else who could help me with keeping all 3 of my children while I work.
She actually never gave me excuses. She actually just told me she was going to pay me.
Life is not easy.
If you work, you should get paid.
But you get back up and you keep moving.
My generation, I'm not sure about yours, I haven't had much experience in yours, but in mine, I think we confuse having to make a hard choice with being out of options. Here, I felt for the defendant. She had to make a hard choice. But even when her father came up and felt the need to burst out and say, my daughter had no options, she had no choice. Well, she did have a choice. It was a hard choice. You had to send your 2 older sons to live with their father and find a sort of mediocre, at best, childcare situation. But you made the choice to have those 3 children. And when you have children, you make a commitment to make the hard choices to benefit them.
In their best interest.
In their best interest. And if you're not prepared to do that, then you shouldn't become a parent.
In any event, I tried to make my steak analogy. It didn't.
I thought it was great. I had a great time.
Great. I'm glad.